There are a lot of people in human design who will tell you that you don't have any opportunities or your opportunities are limited based on your type or based on a lot of things in your chart. What I hope to show you today is that maybe that's not true after all. And maybe you make your own destiny and that you have what you have when you're born, but what you do with it is your choice. And the way I'm going to show you that is by showing you two charts that are exceptionally similar, but also in a million ways different. So let's talk about the sinner or saint and the charts of Ted Bundy and Mother Teresa. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about what human design is, but what I will tell you is that it is a wonderful tool for really seeing the personality of a person and also how they interact in the world and with other people. Unlike astrology or other systems, the human design system is fairly new in that it was discovered in 1987. The man who would be considered the father of human design is Ra Uru Hu, also known as Robert Krakauer. Now, he had an experience with what he called the voice, and if you want to find out more information, just check out YouTube, where he details exactly what happened in his experience. No matter what did or didn't happen, what came out of his whole experience was a synthesis of several different systems that might be considered one of the most accurate personality tools out there. So what systems are included in the human design system? Well, there's Western astrology, Eastern astrology, Jewish Kabbalah, I Ching, the Hindu chakra system, and also a little quantum physics. All systems of which come together to form what's called the human design body graph. Although the human design body graph can be illustrated in different ways, the basic parts of it always remain the same, where there are 9 centers, what are called lines, gates, and also specific colors that are always the same no matter what chart you look at. And where does this information come from? Well, it comes from your birthday, much the same as an astrology chart would be. So you need your birth date, the time of birth, and also where you were born. With these simple details, you can get a huge amount of information. Your personality traits, your challenges, and also the gifts you were given when you were born. If you're interested in getting your own chart and following along, check out this website. So now that we know a little bit about what the human design system is, let's get into the charts and explore what exactly make up these two individuals and how they're supposed to be the same, but in fact, they're in no way similar. So exactly who are these two people we're going to look at today? Mother Teresa, also known as Saint Teresa of Calcutta, was a Catholic nun and missionary who felt it was her duty to help the dying die with dignity. One of her famous quotes was, "A beautiful death is for people who live like animals to die like angels, loved and wanted." She won many awards for her humanitarian work and was also canonized by the Catholic Church for her deeds. Although she was mostly revered for her deeds, she also had some controversy that followed her for her life, as well as times in her ministry where she didn't feel she had her faith in God. Ted Bundy is one of the most infamous American serial killers of all time. He's been the subject of documentaries and also books. He confessed to killing over 30 young women and girls. In 1978, he was captured, but managed to escape not once, but twice from jail. Another unusual thing about him was that he acted as his own defense in his criminal trials. In 1989, at the age of 42, he died in the electric chair. Bundy was described as unusually organized and calculating, a criminal who used his extensive knowledge of law enforcement to elude identification and capture for years. Although he confessed to 30 homicides, nobody really knows what the true number was. Now, if you just look at the two charts side by side, you'll notice that there are quite a few similarities, and we will go through those. But for now, we're going to concentrate on the Incarnation Cross. Since I'm going to be talking about gates, I just wanted to give you a quick rundown about what they are and how we use them in human design. Gates are the main backbone of the human design system. They're what makes each individual chart unique. Just like an astrological chart, the human design system takes the planets and where they're placed on the moment and time of your birth, and constructs a chart or body graph that is specific to you. The 64 gates all have an astrological range of degrees that represent a specific gate. So, for instance, the gate 47 in human design corresponds to Virgo 17 degrees to 22.37 degrees. And what that means is that if a planet falls in those degrees at the moment of your birth, then that gate will be defined on your body graph. And every gate has an opposing gate or the other side of a channel. When two gates are defined and connect, it's almost like a little road between them, and that forms a channel. And when that channel is connected, then that will define the two centers that are connected by that particular channel. And one more little piece of information is that all gates that are defined will either be black, red, or they'll be black and red striped. And if they're not defined, they'll be white. Now that we know that gates are the backbone of a human design chart, and that the gates correspond to a placement for a planet based on the time and date of the birth, let's talk about the Incarnation Cross, which is another name for the top 4 gates of any human design body graph chart. The top 4 gates on any body graph represent the Sun and Earth and are considered to make up 70% of your personality. So by human design standards, these top 4 gates are the most important gates of a chart. There are 192 different configurations that occur in a 365-day year. So the most important thing that we notice with Ted Bundy's chart and Mother Teresa's chart is that they're both right angle cross of the sleeping phoenix, which means that the top 4 numbers are 55, 34, 20, and 59. And that's always the case when you have the right angle cross of the sleeping phoenix. Now, they don't always have the same placement. They may be different in their placement, but they will always be the same 4 gates. That means Ted Bundy and Mother Teresa have the exact same 4 gates as their top 4 numbers, top 4 personality numbers, and again, 70% of who they are. And based on human design, this is considered a very spiritual Incarnation Cross, about leadership in a prominent way, in manifesting a brand new world by teaching people about new ways of connecting with spirit. So the question would be, how often does this cross occur in a year? And the answer would be not as often as you think, because based on the 27 million charts of the Jovian archives, only 4% hold the cross of the sleeping phoenix, and that's all 4 variations. And if you're interested, here's a list of birthdays that will ensure that you're born under the cross of the sleeping phoenix, and also birthdays that have potential to be the sleeping phoenix based on your time of birth. Now, before we study their charts a little bit more in depth, let's have a look at those 4 top numbers and what they mean. And the question you might ask is, why are these gates so important in a chart? Well, they're important because they represent the sun and earth, just like they would in astrology. When anybody talks about their sun sign, they're talking about really who they are and what the world sees. And it's quite similar for human design as well. So what that means is the sun in human design can represent who the person is. Although not everybody who's born under these sun signs are exactly the same, it does give a little bit of a picture about who someone can be. The gate right below the sun is called the gate of the earth. And that's really important too, because in human design, the gate where the earth is a place that we feel grounded. And one more thing that happens just with the human design system is that we also have a set of gates for 90 days before your birthday. And that set of gates are considered your unconscious set of gates, or also called your design. Your design may be traits or personality characteristics that you're not as aware of, but other people know about you. Usually after the age of 40, give or take a few years, you become more aware of the characteristics of your design. The personality side, or all the black numbers, that's where we're more aware of who we are, and we usually can identify these parts of who we are. Now that we know about conscious and unconscious, let's get into the numbers. Both Ted Bundy and Mother Teresa have the gate 59 in their sun. One is in the unconscious sun and one is in the conscious sun. Now, what does the gate 59 actually mean? A key word for the gate 59 would be intimacy. Now, intimacy doesn't always have to be a romantic relationship. Intimacy can be a friendship, a business relationship, or any kind of a relationship that we have with another individual. Just like anything else in life, there's always going to be a high and low side of any energy in human design, and the divide can be quite dramatic. The highest side, of course, is going to be having intimate relationships or one-on-one relationships with people, and just having a very healthy relationship where it's open and there's a sense that the other person actually knows you. And the opposite would be feeling vulnerable but not feeling like you can express yourself. Maybe you always hide that other part of you that you feel like you can't actually show to anybody, because if you do, they actually might think that there's something wrong with you. And when this energy expresses itself on the low side, that can be someone who pushes their way into relationships, who need to be acknowledged. And sometimes when people do that, they're rejected because people don't like to have people strongly coming at them. There can also be a need to dominate and also an addiction to unhealthy relationships. This can be clingy energy, or it can also be an energy of someone who doesn't want to commit to a relationship. And another odd but interesting fact about this gate is that fear can cause sexual attraction. So now that we know about the 59 energy, let's see how it expressed itself in both Mother Teresa and Ted Bundy's charts. Now, if we look at Ted Bundy's chart, the 59 is in the design side. And what I talked about before was the design side is also considered the unconscious side, which means it was energy he probably wasn't as aware of as he would have been after the age of 40. And since most of his crimes started before his age of 40, then he would have been probably not so aware of that energy. And another interesting part of the 59 energy in Ted Bundy's chart is that it's 59 in the line 5. Now, I'm not going to get into what the lines mean, but I will give you a keyword for 59 line 5. They call it the Casanova. And that makes a lot of sense, because really, if there's anything that people said consistently about Ted Bundy, it was that he was extremely charming and like the boy next door, and most people thought he was harmless. So if we see the expression of the 59 on the low side in Ted Bundy, we could see dominance, also an addiction to unhealthy relationships, and especially the dishonesty of always keeping a side of yourself private from the rest of the world and also from the person that you're in a relationship with. And that was another thing that Ted Bundy was quite adept at, being very secretive and hiding all his crimes. Now, if we look at Mother Teresa, her 59 is in the line 3, and it's in her conscious sun. When we talk about the conscious, as I said before, it's something you're more aware of. So, based on that, Mother Teresa was probably more aware of her relationships and how she interacted with people. The key word for the line 3 in the gate 59 is openness. Her openness in relationships can easily be seen in her ability to connect with people who were, for all intents and purposes, shunned by society. In fact, those were the people that Mother Teresa both connected and related to, and who were the people she spent all her humanitarian and charitable acts on. Her need for intimate relationships with those suffering didn't stop with just those around her. Mother Teresa went into war zones. She connected with radiation victims after the Chernobyl incident. She made trips to Ethiopia, Armenia, and all over the world in her quest to help people who were suffering the most. So, two very different people and two very different expressions of the same gate. Let's talk about the gate 34. The gate 34 is found in Ted Bundy's conscious sun, and it's found in Mother Teresa's unconscious earth. Now, the earth is all about what grounds you. And we'll talk about what that means for Mother Teresa in just a minute. But for now, let's talk about the gate 34. The key word for the gate 34 is power. And what does that mean? Of all the gates in human design, this is one of the most capable energies for getting work done. This can be the gate of a workaholic and someone with natural and tireless energy and strength. This is the energy of someone who can respond to a lot of things at once, and someone who gets so lost in the work that they forget about pretty much everything else in their life. The low expression of this energy can be somebody who's competitive to exclusion of all else. There can be a survival of the fittest mentality and also a pushing to get what you want in life. There can even be a bullying nature, because this energy can be so powerful in an individual that they get lost in the force of it and forget that there is anything outside of their own needs, where there's no limits that they will not cross to get what they want. Alternately, this energy can be somebody who doesn't see their power for what it is and may think everybody else is better than them and knows better than them. They can be puppets for other people. And for people who have this energy, a difficult childhood can really change the way they develop as an adult. And instead of using their power and energy, they bottle it up, and it's like having lightning in a bottle where eventually it will explode. Right away, because both Mother Teresa and Ted Bundy have the energy of the 34, we know that they're powerful individuals who can get a lot done. So let's have a look at Ted Bundy's chart. By having the gate 34 in his conscious sun, Ted Bundy would have been more aware of this energy and also his power. And based on the interviews that he gave when he was incarcerated, he mentioned that he had an abusive grandfather and also a difficult childhood because his biological father wasn't involved in his life. And since the gate 34 can be deeply affected by a difficult childhood, this actually could have played a role in his apparent complete lack of connection with the crimes he committed. In fact, one of the statements he made concerned the idea that everybody was out to get him, and he couldn't really understand why. This ideology is in keeping with the whole concept of not being aware of the self, which can be very common with somebody with the gate 34. Also, as I talked about the dark side, was the idea that he could get lost in what he was doing to the exclusion of all else. This total lack of connection with anything outside of himself could have definitely been a factor in how he could commit the atrocities that he actually did. Mother Teresa also has this energy, but instead of it being in her sun, it's in her unconscious earth. Mother Teresa worked well into her 80s, so it's assumed that for half her life at least, she knew about the power that she could wield. And I think because she knew it, she definitely used it. If there was one single characteristic that was documented the most about Mother Teresa, it was that she never backed down from her beliefs. Despite receiving criticism on her stance on abortion and divorce, Mother Teresa never seemed affected by the criticism. One of her famous statements was, "No matter who says what, you should accept it with a smile and continue on with your work." And here, too, we can also see that Mother Teresa, similar to Ted Bundy, was lost to the force within her, except her force was the power of what she called her connection with God. Having this gate probably allowed her to do a lot more work than the average person could have done. And because it was in her unconscious earth, she was actually grounded by the work she did. And maybe because of that, she was able to match her devotion to God with work out in the real world. So if I've piqued your interest and you want to find out more about Ted Bundy and Mother Teresa's charts, have a look at part 2, where we dissect and pull apart even more about the charts of Ted Bundy and Mother Teresa, and discover all the secrets that human design can reveal.